Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's session of career coaching and mentoring class brought to you by Sedat Consult with support from Logo Brand. Please contact Logo Brand on 0203954216, 0203954216 for all your branding and graphic designing needs. Thank you so much for making time to be part of the session today. Today promises to be a very great learning experience. Today we are discussing developing critical thinking, agility, and assertiveness for your career development. You will all agree with me that COVID happened and has actually disrupted the world of work so much so that a lot of things have changed. And for that matter, we cannot continue to do business as usual or to work as usual. If you want to progress in our career, there are things that we need to do, and there are things that, as a matter of necessity, we must stop doing if you want to move forward. Today, we are privileged indeed to be hosting one of the world's best when it comes to the HR profession, leadership, executive coaching, and what have you. She is my senior at the secondary school, and she's a lady I look up to a lot and I admire so much. She's so loaded with so much, yet she's so down to earth and so kind. Sometimes I wonder how she does that. But we are privileged this afternoon to be having this conversation with her. My guest today is Dr. Hazel P. Berrard Amuah. Dr. Amuah is also a lecturer. She is a certified executive and cross-cultural coach. She holds a master's in organizational development, or OD. She also holds a master's in French and English, PhD in business administration, and another PhD in leadership. So I call her Doctor, all right? And she loves cycling. She loves reading, she loves spending time with her family, she loves having fun, and she loves doing charity work. That is why when I tell you that she's so kind-hearted, you won't believe it. But that is the kind of person we have here. And it's a privilege, Doc. I know how busy you are, but I also know how you love to always share knowledge and impart lives. And that is why I'm very, very happy that you are here this afternoon, helping us discuss this. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our guest, Dr. Hazel Berrard Amuah. Doc, thank you so much. It's always a joy and a privilege, when I have to have interaction. I mean, I've had one-on-one interactions with her, and I tell you, she's so down to earth. Sometimes I wonder, hey, is this the kind of person who has achieved so much? Yes. And she loves God. She loves God so much. And that is what really draws me closer and closer to her. Doc, thank you so much. It's a privilege to have you here today. But for those who are joining us right now, remember that career coaching and mentoring class is brought to you by Sedat Consult with support from Logo Brand. Please contact Logo Brand 020-395-4216, 020-395-4216. For all your branding and graphic designing needs. And we are going to have a conversation that will really help us position ourselves well to take our careers to the next level. As you all know, the world of work has changed so much. And the skills that you used to have that were really helping you grow in your career, you cannot use those same skills to grow your career during this COVID-19 times and even post-COVID-19. And that is why this conversation is very critical. And that is why we are privileged to be hosting Dr. Berrard Amuah. Okay, so we are discussing critical thinking. We are looking at agility, and then assertiveness. How can we develop these skills that have become very critical today in view of the changes that have happened to the world of work? It is said that never in the history of the world has the world of work changed so much. Today, the workplace is in a state of creative destruction. Can you beat that? Creative destruction and constant reinvention. What it means is that we need to always be in the mood to reinvent. We need to always be in the mood to change, to embrace change, to adapt. Otherwise, we will find ourselves wanting. And I know, and not to put anybody on the line, but I know that a lot of people have lost their jobs through no fault of theirs. And at this point in time, you won't blame employers because COVID has hit most employers so much. And so the few people that will be left, what will determine who will stay and who will go? What will determine, or what will make an organization decide that I want to keep employee A, but I will have to release employee B? What goes into that decision? And that is what Doug will help us answer. And from research, we have come to realize that these three skills are very critical. Talking about critical thinking, talking about agility, and talking about assertiveness. And these are critical skills that we actually need to survive, first of all, and also to progress in our career. Thank you, Doug. Welcome.
I think the technology was not on our side today, but yes, I've been able to connect back.
Yes, we are glad. And we can hear you clearly. Thank you so much, Doug. It's a privilege. It's really a privilege to have you. Right, so as usual, I would like to start from the basics. We like to start from the basics. You are talking about critical thinking. We are talking about agility and assertiveness. Somebody will say the definition of terms. So, Doug, can you help us understand what these three skills are, and then we can proceed from there?
Thank you so much, Patricia. I think I'd like to elaborate and put all of them into context and make questions among critical thinking, agility, and assertiveness. I'd like to say that these sound like very big English words, right? But I think you were asking me to express my opinions on my understanding of critical thinking, and also share some thoughts around agility and assertiveness for career development. And the submission I was making before was that, in my humble opinion, when it comes to critical thinking, agility and assertiveness, I would take it beyond career development to general life endeavor. So I would say that you require critical thinking and agility and assertiveness to be able to survive in any human relationship, in any human, setting. Critical thinking is simply the ability to think clearly and rationally about what to do, what not to do, what to believe, and what not to believe. It's about the ability to engage in reflective and independent thinking. Someone with critical thinking skills is able to understand logical connections among different ideas. Someone with critical thinking can identify and construct and evaluate arguments. They can detect inconsistencies and conflicts in reasoning. They can solve problems systematically. They can anticipate problems and solve them before they even fully happen. They can identify the relevance and importance of ideas, and they can reflect on the justification of their own beliefs and value systems and how they apply to what they applaud and what they don't applaud. Critical thinking is not about accumulating information or storing information in your memory. You can store so much information, you can call things to memory. That is not critical thinking. Oftentimes when we see people who have the ability to remember things and have a strong memory, we think they are critical thinkers. To debunk that thinking, I want to debunk that belief that those who have a good memory are critical thinkers. Those who have a good memory are just storage tanks. They are just able to put information in their head or data in their head without necessarily connecting the dots or being able to use that information constructively. To use whatever we store in our memory house constructively makes us begin to think critically. A critical thinker is able to deduce consequences from what they know. So you know something, you have information about something, you are able to deduce the consequences and make the information able to solve problems. If you have so much information, so much data, and you cannot use that information to solve problems, you are not a critical thinker. A critical thinker can use inform themselves. In other words, when they think they are full of information, they are full of what they already know, they seek more information to build on what they have already accumulated and are using to solve problems. That is why an engineer is able to use some information to create something. Once they have created that thing or solved the problem, would want to seek more information to solve bigger problems or to create more. So critical thinking is very, very important, and it should not be also somebody who can argue. A lot of us admire those who have loud voices and, you know, can sort of argue and debate and sometimes make noise. They are not necessarily critical thinkers. They sometimes are just noise makers, all right? Just before I reconnected, I think I heard Michael mention something around politics. And just before I connected to the call, I saw a post on Facebook about someone saying they are not political, but we should be careful how we manage our comments around politics. And I really endorse that. Whether it's the American politics or the Ghanaian politics, we have those who have been in power and have left power, and those who have never been in power, vying for power, been in power in different capacities and want to come into power. And then I listen to these politics, and actually I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? Where is the critical thought behind the presentations? You know, I don't always listen to the news because the news is becoming a place where there is sometimes mockery information, and there is also the landscape where people are actually not even seeing the right thing. So when you're a critical thinker, you're able to discern from the information you hear or listen to and connect the dots about what makes sense, sorry for my French, and what doesn't make sense. So critical thinking is not about career development only, about judgment, it's about making serious life decisions, about voting, about calling to power those or voting for those who have to come to power to govern our countries. Critical thinking can expose fallacies, and that's the point I'm just making. When you think critically, you can expose the fallacies and the bad reasoning that are being propounded by people who have a voice or a platform to say things. So when you're a critical thinker, you listen to all these points and decide what is relevant for me to make the right decision, what is relevant for me to have cooperative reasoning and to have constructive, you know, thinking to solve problems. Critical thinking can help us to acquire knowledge, improve our theories, and strengthen our arguments. And there are arguments across theology, across politics, across economics, across health, and so many fields of endeavor. So please, let's always try to think critically for these, you know, successful problem solving. There's an argument that makes me laugh. That argument is that critical thinkers are not creative. I'm sure if I talk to my friends who are in the creative space, they'll really laugh, because to be able to create something, you have to think critically and be able to connect the dots, remember what was successful, what failed, be able to innovate something that will work and be successful. Critical thinking is quite compatible with thinking outside the box. I even like to say thinking without any box at all, because thinking in boxes puts us in silos and puts us in certain limited, you know, ways of viewing the world. Critical thinking is very important, and I think it's one skill that we need to teach in our schools. So we need to teach children right from primary school to become critical thinkers. Our curriculum has to be changed to help children just sit and think and connect the dots, rather than, you know, making children learn how to chew, pour, pass, and forget. The educational system is memory, being able to use them or apply them when questions are asked. And afterwards, if you ask the same student who learned whatever a month or two ago, they can't even remember what they learned. So it's important that we put these things into context. Critical thinking is very important for the knowledge of the economy. Here we are in a country where we are talking about economic issues and political issues and inflation, and how COVID has actually impacted the whole world and ourselves. How do we use critical thinking to solve our problems? How do we use to leverage your technology? How are we able to deal with these changes quickly? And that brings me to the point around agility, pace, and speed. How can we use economic phases using critical thinking? Critical thinking enhances even our language and our presentation. When you think well, it helps you to present issues in a way that help others to see your point of view and to buy in if it makes sense to them or aligns with their values or their visions. So critical thinking cannot be underestimated. It calls for self-reflection. There is no critical thinker who does not self-reflect. Before you can become a critical thinker, you have to have the ability to be able to introspect, self-reflect, and be able to see what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, what the opportunities and threats are out there before you put all of them together to succeed. So it's important that we remember this space of critical thinking. And let me move to agility, which and being able to understand things very quickly. Now, agility has become a very popular word today because of the way the world is evolving, the way business is evolving, the way politics, economics, and different landscapes are evolving. But what is really agility about? There are several synonyms that can be likened to agility. One of them is dexterity, quickness, sharpness, swiftness. Another one is adroitness, being clever and being spirited. So agility is just about having pace, having energy, being able to connect things quickly at a very fast pace and making the dots amongst themselves. So you cannot be a critical thinker without having agility. So I've just connected critical thinking with agility. Today in our world, we often talk about agility in the business world, but there are people who are not in business, who are in church, who are in religion, who are in faith, who are in not-for-profit organizations, who are in education, who are not doing things for money per se, but they have to be agile because adapt quickly the changes around them and respond internally to be able to be abreast with these changes. So agility is not only linked to the business world or the corporate world. Agility has to do with every sphere of endeavor. So I'd like to just share this with everybody that you don't have to be in business or in corporate world to be agile. Let's look at ourselves. Even the person selling in Makola, the person selling or doing small trade or petty trading in the corner shop, anywhere. To the rise of COVID, for example, about wearing masks and washing hands and practice social distancing. How can they adapt to be successful? Because they'll contract the virus, they'll become sick, and their business or their selling endeavor will shut down. So agility has to do with being able to adapt quickly to changes around us in a way that is fit. It's about adjustments. So all of us, whether we are in business or corporate or individuals, have a strategy. Every month when I get paid, I decide how. Before the end of the month, I begin to project, what do I need for my household? What do my children need? What do I need for myself? Does my car need repairs? Does my house need painting? What do my parents need? What do my children need? What does the other person that I'm supporting need? I strategize. Do I have a bank loan? Do I need to build a house using a mortgage? Do I need to get a loan to buy a car? Do I have to make an investment? I strategize. It means I have to be agile to adjust my strategies on a continuous basis to respond to the outside economic trends, the outside political trends, or whatever is happening around us. In the end, if you're not agile, you cannot jump on a platform like mobile money. Once upon a time, there wasn't mobile money, but agility, which is in our other than conscious mind, makes us jump on the opportunity to be able to use mobile money to transact business. And I'm not speaking for any of the techno platforms. I'm just using that as an example. So typically, when you're agile, you're able to take key decisions in a very quick way, even when the environment is very challenging, and able to respond to ambiguity or uncertainty with flexibility and speed. I want to use COVID again as an example. When COVID started, nobody anticipated COVID. There are schools of thought around COVID being created by the Chinese or the Americans. I am not a politician. I won't even go there. But COVID, shocked. The Americans were shocked. The Ghanaians were shocked. The British are shocked. The French are shocked. Everybody's been shocked by COVID. So there was a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty. Literally on a daily basis, we are hearing information around COVID, what COVID is and what COVID is not, how to get COVID and how not to get COVID, and all kinds of things. I even heard that when you get COVID once, you develop a resistance not to get COVID again. That's not even true. People have got COVID more than twice. I heard those masks can be worn a certain way and you won't get COVID. That's not true. So there were so many theories around COVID because of the uncertainty and ambiguity. But those countries and those individuals who were able to survive COVID responded with agility, flexibility, and speed. In other words, for every life problem, agility, flexibility, and speed are required for us to succeed. Today, there's no known cure or not any known vaccine for COVID. But people are recovering from COVID. People are taking medications and drinking all kinds of neem tree or pineapple or, you know, ginger concoction, getting well from COVID because they are trying and testing those methods by responding quickly and flexibly, right? So how do we use these unanticipated changes, grab the opportunities and have transformation? I was quite saddened last week to see that the numbers in Ghana are growing again. It's just because we're being careless. Because in Ghana, I would say we had a world-class approach to responding to COVID, to contain it, to turn it around, and to reduce the casualties. We've had less than 400 deaths in Ghana for COVID. This is a lot for Ghanaians, but it's not as much as other countries where they've had thousands and hundreds of thousands of deaths because of COVID. So anticipation with speed is agility. There are three key facets when it comes to dealing with agility, or things that we have to do when it comes to agility. How we manage the people around us, whether we're in a family system or a society or corporate. How do we rally the people around our immediate circles for them to also become agile and respond with the same speed to avoid us having any failures and to have us increase our success rate in responding? Sometimes it may mean that we have to overhaul how we do things, our processes. And this is not just in terms of the large institutions or the large corporations. Even in the household with COVID, how did we change our approach to receiving visitors or to keeping our personal hygiene? Most of us created a personal hygiene center where we had a Veronica bucket with soap and water, with disinfectant and with tissue papers and a dustbin. So we changed our process, we changed how we do things. So every time we are responding, we are being agile. Let's think about our people and the ways we do things around us. And importantly, our mindset. If we don't change our mindset, which is part of our culture, there will be no change, there will be no agility, right? What is culture? Culture is a way of doing things peculiar to a group of people who have certain things in common. Culture is not that necessarily big thing. Culture can apply to couples, married couples. It can apply to friends. It can apply to small family settings. It can apply to institutions. It can apply to businesses. So culture is very important. Mindset is the backbone of culture. So when we are agile and we are responding to change in a flexible, in a fast way, our thinking and our mindset has to change. If not all the people in our enclave, in our ecosystem, if not all of them change their mindset, then we have people who are pulling us back, and we will not be able to succeed when it comes to responding quickly to change. That's why sometimes we have in change passengers and the blockers, or the passengers and the prisoners. So when we have agility and critical thinking, let's help those who are slow to change their mindset to respond to these changes. Now I transition quickly into assertiveness. I love the word assertiveness because I had to study assertiveness to be able to distinguish between assertiveness and aggressiveness. When I was growing up, I felt those who were boisterous and noisy and, you know, could use a lot of energy in their presentations were assertive. I was misunderstanding or mixing assertiveness with aggressiveness. I want to say it because a lot of us confuse assertiveness and aggressiveness. What is it to be assertive? Assertiveness is a skill that is about social and communication skills. And that means that I, as a person, respect my rights. I know my rights. I know who I am. I know what I stand for. And I respect what you stand for. I respect your rights. And I respect you as an individual. And let's keep it short and simple. You respect me. I respect you. Period. That's assertiveness. It means I will not trample over your rights, and you will not trample over my rights. Even if we don't agree and we have different views about the same issue, we can express our views in a very amicable and friendly way without offending each other, without being very aggressive, and without necessarily also be wrong. So when you're assertive, you still stand your ground. But it doesn't mean that when you're assertive and somebody says something that's like a light bulb that brings you a certain understanding or a certain enlightenment, you don't accept that you could have been wrong. When you're assertive, you can accept mistakes. You can accept your own mistakes, but still be assertive and say, you know what, Patricia, you're right. I didn't think about this thing. Wow, that's a good thing that you just brought to my understanding. Wow, That's very important. Or Patricia, I think you are right. However, have you thought about this as well? Then you connect the dots, critical thinking. So you're being agile, you're thinking critically, and you're being assertive. It shows that you respect yourself and you respect the other person in a way that you communicate your thoughts in a very interesting way and express yourself and your feelings in a way that's mutually beneficial to you and the other person. So assertiveness is so important. Assertiveness can be learned. There are people who are naturally very introspective. They are very quiet. They are introverts, and others are extroverts. Even if you're an introvert, it doesn't stop you from being assertive. I'll give an example about my 2 children, and I have a very assertive daughter. Has a way of presenting himself because he's more of an introvert. So my daughter is more extroverted, and my son is more introverted. But that's a good balance. I like the balance in my household. But what I like is that because I teach him about assertiveness, if he doesn't say, "Sure, I don't agree with you, because here's what I think." And he's very philosophical, and he uses stories and how he's using critical thinking to, put things together, connect the dots, and present himself. And half the time I look at this boy and I'm thinking, that's a philosopher right there, because he thinks deeply before he makes conclusions or jumps to conclusions. But he's assertive in a very quiet way. To take it to corporate life, to take it to our work teams, you will always have that one person in the group who is always very loud and quick to respond to things, quick to put ideas on the table. And you have that other quiet person who may have the last word, but that last word they give will change the whole dynamics because they have thought through what everybody has said. To become assertive, make sure that the decision that you make will always positively assert yourself. To be open and honest in communicating, always listen actively. I didn't say attentively, actively. And agree to disagree. Avoid feeling guilty for not agreeing. You can stay calm and be assertive. Take problem-solving approach to dealing with conflict when you're being assertive. And always use facts and not just guts and feelings to present your point for the other person or the other group of people to see where you're coming from. When you're being assertive, you can be direct about what you need, about what you want, about what you feel, about what you believe, in a very respectful way. The key to making assertiveness powerful is respecting the other person. To be assertive, try to always make sure that you are very open and very honest. These are a few things I'd like to share around being assertive. Remember to listen with your whole self, listen to understand and not to respond necessarily. Listen to the other person's needs and feelings, express yourself, be specific, and always try to have an outcome of any situation. Being assertive requires having confidence and having clarity of communication and being controlled with your emotions. Sometimes we jump too quickly because we think being assertive means showing energy, showing clout, showing presence. So these are the points I'd just like to share around critical thinking, agility, and assertiveness. Back to you, Patricia.
Wow. This is a whole book, I'm telling you, Doc. This is very, very revealing. But Doc, does culture has anything to do with?
Actually, culture has a very strong role in how people behave. Culture informs our values, our behaviors, our belief systems. Mm-hmm. So culture does play a role. And I did a study on cross-cultural leadership as part of my PhD studies. I did a study of Nigerians, of the Senegalese, of the Burkinabes, of the Ivorians, and the Ghanaians. And you would notice that indeed amongst the lot, Nigerians come across as more assertive, same as the Ivorians compared to the Burkinabes, the Senegalese, and the Ghanaians. So these are cultural, but as I mentioned, it can be changed. Culture is neither right or wrong. If you look at the Asians, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Indians, they are raised in a particular way. Some of them would never even raise their heads to look at the Ghanaians. When you are speaking to an elderly person, you don't raise your eyes and look straight into their eyes, eyeball to eyeball. The way you sit, you don't cross your legs and shoot them the under of your foot and all of that. These are things we are taught in terms of our culture, our ways of doing.
Yeah.
But on the global landscape, we have to make some adjustments to be able to step up and to suit the trends that are being propounded out there. It doesn't mean that we have to forget our culture. It means we have to style switch, intelligent, to be able to adapt our ways of communicating, our ways of interacting, to be able to, you know, sort of respond to the other person we are dealing with. If I'm dealing with my fancy friends, because my father is fancy, I can afford to fully offload my fancy culture, my fancy values, my fancy terminologies, my fancy terms, my fancy jokes, and it will sit well and nicely because there's a cultural fit. If I have to now deal with somebody from a different culture, whose culture may be more, whose culture may be very different from mine, because I have become attuned or I am aware of their culture, I have to style switch or step up or step down my game to be able to respond to them.
But I think the issues, Doc has articulated the point so well. It's not about accumulation of knowledge. Critical thinking is not just about accumulation of knowledge. It's about using knowledge to make the right decisions. Thank you very much, Doc. Thank you. Thank you so much.